Awesome. So it looks like we are live. So hi, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in to our live Q&A this afternoon. My name is Liz Eggleston. I run Course Report, which is a resource for students who are researching coding boot camps. So if you haven't used Course Report, this is my one plug. Check it out. We have thousands of reviews, tons of interviews with alumni and instructors and founders at boot camps across the world. But every once in a while, we get to talk with folks who are super important to the coding bootcamp world, which are, of course, employers. So hiring partners who see coding bootcamps as an actual source for technical talent are crucial to the success of this industry. So I am super excited to welcome Pat Poels, who is the VP of Engineering at Eventbrite. And Pat has hired developers in the past from Halfbright Academy, which is a software engineering bootcamp for women in San Francisco. I'm sure everybody knows about them and Eventbrite. So in short, Pat is the perfect person to talk with about his experience hiring from a coding bootcamp, what he looks for in bootcamp grads, and how Eventbrite helps those new hires from Halfbright keep learning and growing as engineers once they actually join the team. So really excited to have Pat here. Let's dive right into these questions. So Pat, tell us about Eventbrite and tell us about your role there. How did you find yourself at Eventbrite?
Thanks, Liz. Great to be here.
Yeah.
So I've been with Eventbrite for 4.5 years. We're an online ticketing platform who work with companies in all different categories. So we don't really limit to one potential or one specific category. And we've been in operation for 10 years. The company's been very, very successful and growing like a weed. And we've I've been leading the engineering team here for 4.5. I was 15 years at Ticketmaster before, and then played poker for a living in between, which is kind of a different story altogether.
I love that. How large is the dev team at Eventbrite now?
So it's 145 engineers on the team across 3 different offices, and that ends up making up about 30% of the overall staff at Eventbrite.
That's pretty impressive. How did you get connected with Halfbright Academy?
Yeah, interesting story. So I think the Girls Who Code group was having a meeting in our office, not in the office we're currently in, but in one we were in on Brandon. And I happened to see the meeting that was going on, and a couple of instructors from Halfbright were there for that class.
Cool.
And that was when I got a chance to meet those instructors and kind of get close to the program. Met David that night, and I thought it was a terrific idea. They invited me to come out for the first, actually it was their second grad day to hear all the different pitches from the new engineers. And I've been pretty attached to the program ever since.
So that was their second grad day. That was probably back in 2012, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So what kinds of roles have you hired Halfbright graduates for at Eventbrite? Is there like a junior developer role at Eventbrite? Do you call it something different?
Yeah, we don't really call it junior developer. It's a software engineer 1 level
Cool.
for us. And it's been, most of the engineers we've hired have been fairly full stack. Some have started off more on the front end just recently, but for the most part, there's a pretty wide and various set of things that we do, a lot of interesting problems to solve. And we don't really look for a certain kind of engineer from the program. We're looking for people who are just, people we think are a good fit for the company, and people who we think are really smart and have a great potential to learn.
Right, because Halfbright is kind of unique in that they teach Python. Is Eventbrite built on Python? Is that the stack that y'all typically use, or do you use multiple?
Yeah, we do a lot of different things as far as databases go, but as far as the web, we're doing our development in Python, and we use Django
Cool.
as our framework there.
Oh, that's amazing. So it's like makes total sense. That's like a great fit. That's awesome.
And it doesn't hurt when I get to go in and talk with candidates from Halfbright to tell them that one of the co-creators of Django actually works here, because it's a tool that they're learning a bit about, and so that's something that helps kind of bind them to. It's a great place to learn.
That's amazing. That's really cool. So other than Halfbright, I'm just curious, how do y'all usually hire developers? Like, what are you looking for in a new hire? Are you going through recruiters? Are you looking at like CS programs? How do you find those devs?
I mean, it's really the lifeblood of a company like ours to have great engineers and to find people who are going to be able to create innovative solutions if we want to do it better and not just do the same things that other people have done in ticketing. So we really try to exhaust every potential channel, every potential outlet. That means having connections with universities. It means, really connecting with, friends and people's personal referrals, people that they worked with before that they know are really brilliant. We do get, that's still our biggest channel for new hires. But then interesting programs like Halfbright as well, because I don't want to just hire very senior, people who've been in the industry for 10 or 15 years. I want to have a mix of new ideas and bring in new people as well. And Halfbright's a great channel for that.
Yeah, right. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. Do you notice, and I guess you sort of just mentioned it, but like, what do you notice as far as differences in hiring from Halfbright versus hiring like from, a university program, or from recruiters hiring those like senior developers in that way? You mentioned like new ideas. I think that's really cool.
I think there's an element of fearlessness that exists for people who've self-selected into a program like Halfbright. And you think about it, it's not really, they haven't all had schooling that's directly down this path. They've had some sort of non-traditional backgrounds. I know about having non-traditional backgrounds because I have one myself. But I think that in general, those people who have shown that fearlessness tend to be, really strong on ideas. They tend to be really great at learning and working through whatever problems they may have. And they've already had some experience in knowing what other things they might not want to do. And so this is, I just think it's been a great channel for us so far. It's been very successful.
Yeah, no, I think that's the people that you've hired from Halfbright so far, have they had like CS degrees as well, or have they been largely non-technical beforehand? Do you know?
There's been a wide variety.
Okay.
A couple who have had CS degrees, for the most part, no. But okay. Some who are already working in the field around the periphery, and some, who are doing something completely different. I think, we've had a chance to meet and see a lot of potential candidates from Halfbright, mm-hmm. and we've been able to find the ones that we thought were terrific fits for us. And I can't really point at, we've only hired people who have had a CS background, right. or who have not had a CS background, or have worked in the industry before, or who have not. Right. I think there's a lot of different things we look for, and it's not just those things.
Right. So you're not looking for like one specific background. But that being said, a CS degree isn't necessarily like a requirement to work in the engineering department at Eventbrite.
No, that's not cool. At all. Even the stack that we use, I find that a lot of our really great engineers, when they came in the door, they didn't actually have Python experience. So we want to make sure there are a set of things we look for in a candidate, and we can talk mm-hmm. about those, but it isn't so much necessarily around the stack or around their computer science background.
Yeah, well, so you mentioned, that you meet a lot of Halfbright alumni and students. And to that end, like, there are a lot of Bootcamp alumni right now who are looking for jobs, like way more than there were, 2 years ago at least. Of those Halfbright Academy grads that you've actually ended up hiring, what sort of stood out about them? Like, were you most impressed with their final projects at demo day? Was it their interviewing skills? Did they you said they don't have a certain background, but like, what made you hire those particular students? Sure.
It's a good question. And I think everybody's process is going to be different.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly the projects that these graduates that came out of Halfbright, for the most part, those projects are really incredible. And I do think that they're learning interviewing skills as well. But really for us, we're looking for people we think have incredible potential, and we all have different processes for trying to figure that out. Who appears to be really bright, who appears to be really inquisitive, who's going to work hard and really try to fight through, the hurdles that you're invariably going to hit as you're trying to learn to become a new engineer. Mm-hmm. Really looking for a potential, like a long-term potential that we think is very high. And if that means that the startup is a little bit slower for them because they haven't had a traditional background, or because there aren't necessarily a stack fit or whatever, we're less interested in worrying about that and much more trying to measure what do we think the potential is long-term.
Totally. I love hearing that.
I was going to say also for us, company fit means a lot like the culture of this company is something that was pretty carefully cultivated from the start. And so making sure that they're people that we want to work with. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that you can figure out in an interview process as well.
Do most of your developers work in offices, or do you have remote options, or people working distributed?
So we have 3 offices. We have one
mm-hmm.
here in San Francisco, and then we have one in Mendoza, Argentina, which is a company that we acquired that did some things very similar to Eventbrite.
Okay.
3 years ago. And then we also have an office in Nashville. There are a couple of people who work in different locations, but for the most part, our engineers, like all but just a couple of them, are in one of those 3 locations.
Cool. That's awesome. What does the sort of like relationship look like between Eventbrite and Halfbright? I love that y'all's names are almost parallel also. You mentioned like you've been involved with them since 2012. Mm-hmm. Are y'all going to demo days? Are y'all guest lecturing? Like, how tightly involved with Halfbright are you?
Sure. Well, I can tell you that neither of us changed our name for the other one, so okay. that didn't happen on purpose. It's just sort of serendipitous. But as far as how connected we are, we try to attend all of their career days. We've missed a few of them, but we try to attend all of them. We have people who are mentoring from our office who mentor people who are current candidates. We have at least one person on the team who's done it pretty much every class that they've had. And I've been over to talk with the students during, I think one of the classes I actually went over and did a kind of a longer Q&A thing with them. But I mean, I think it's a terrific program. It's something that we want to be attached to and help further. And even if that doesn't mean, like, I'm not trying to find a better channel to get the candidates to say yes to us necessarily. I think it's something that's an important program, and I think it's something we want to give back to. So we're not doing those things in order to try and further our chances.
Yeah, well, I love that you mentioned mentoring though, because I think that's really important. And I get a lot of questions from like employers or, future hiring partners who are like, how do I even get started with hiring from a boot camp? And like, there's nothing better than having an actual Eventbrite employee mentoring students throughout the course. You actually get to know the students really well and like understand who's going to be the best fit at your company. So I think that's brilliant on y'all's part.
Well, as it's turned out, I think we've only hired a couple of people where we had a mentor relationship before, out of the 8 that we've hired through, over time. I do think you're right. You get a little bit more of a specific view into that person, but that hasn't been where we've done the bulk of our hiring. Okay,
cool. That is good to know. So I'm assuming that those 8 hires from Halfbright did go through like a technical interview, right, at Eventbrite, like any developer would go through.
Yes.
How did they do? And when you are thinking about hiring from a boot camp, are you thinking about like modifying the interview at all for those students who don't necessarily have like that super strong theoretical CS background, or who may not necessarily don't?
Sure. Yeah, it's my philosophy that if you have a one-size-fits-all interview process, you're really going to miss a lot of things on both ends of the spectrum from an experience standpoint. So if you ask the very CS-heavy questions, a person who's been in the industry for 15 years, who's learned just a ton of things, those things may not be fresh in their head, and they may actually do worse. Similarly, someone who hasn't been through that kind of CS background may not do well in those interviews. So you have to find a way to be able to answer the questions that you have. How well is this person going to do? What kind of potential do they have? How hungry are they to learn? Are they going to be somebody you want to work with? You have to figure those things out in different ways based on different levels of experience. So I'm not going to say that we're perfect at it, but it's definitely something that we've spent a long time trying to learn how to do this better and better.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, you mentioned that Eventbrite does work in Python, which seems like that's an awesome fit for Halfbright graduates. But obviously, a bootcamp grad is going to hit the ground running and like need some mentorship and ramp up when they start at a new job. How do y'all approach that? Like, how are you ensuring that new hires are supported really well as they're continuing to learn after they graduate from Halfbright?
It's a great question, and I wouldn't say we have this like completely figured out bulletproof yet. It's something that we're continuing to get better at over time. Yeah. But it starts with having a mentor that you are assigned to work with when you get here.
That's so cool.
And making sure that person is really there for your questions. But the truth is, out of the 145 engineers, we all know that we're successful based on the success of the rest of the team as well. It's not a competitive environment where you're trying to step on somebody else in order to get to the next rung or whatever. So we're all there to answer everyone's questions. I think we use Slack very very well, and so I think those questions get surfaced out to everyone, and you have a really good environment and kind of ecosystem of great engineers to help with those questions. And that's a big part of it as well. Also, I think we've found it very important to make sure that our documentation for our products and for our engineering environments and for all of the things that we do, that's very strong, and make sure that's a resource for people as well. And then finally, we do these kind of boot camps, pretty often.
Cool.
And sometimes they're on getting started in the company. Sometimes they're on a particular kind of technology that we're trying to go to. There's a big one going on in our office right now with 25 people in a room just down the hall around React, which is something that we're pushing into, and want to make sure everybody gets that learning together. So I think all these things help. They help our existing engineers get better, and they also help new people who are coming on to kind of onboard faster.
That's really cool. It sounds like y'all have developed a really cool culture around like learning and growing. And you're totally right. Like, helping junior developers ramp up is awesome, but having that atmosphere of everybody learning and like ramping up to the next technology is totally crucial. So that sounds awesome. Cool.
Well, having a learning culture is, it's what makes it exciting for the engineers. I think, of course, everybody likes having a company that's successful and growing, and, you like it when your stock price goes up, and all those things are important too. But really at a core, part of what the Halfbright candidates have shown is that they're enjoying learning. It's something that they're willing to do and that they're able to do in order to get through that program. I think the people that you really enjoy working around the most are the ones that want to continue learning and keep getting better and keep teaching each other. So we try to create that culture here. So
cool. Okay, so speaking of that, are there any interesting stories that you have about Halfbright hires who have advanced in their career since hiring them? You've been hiring for a couple of years now.
Sure. Well, I guess we have a few, but one I would talk about is there is one candidate named Sambi Lee who was one of the first 2 hires out of that second class from Halfbright. She worked with us for a while, and decided that she really wanted to have a deeper understanding of computer science, and so she decided to go back to Stanford and get her master's in computer science. That wasn't her. Computer science was not her background before, but she decided to do this, and she worked with us for 1.5 years. She actually interned with us while she was going to Stanford, and she's graduating her master's program in June, and she's coming back to work for us, which I'm super excited about. I know she had a lot of options of places to go and different things that she could have done, but I think she felt like she learned a lot here. She felt like there was a lot of a family feeling, and she can see how much has actually changed and moved forward in the time that she hasn't been here, which kind of makes it even more exciting to come back.
That's so cool. I love that. Do y'all have a feedback loop with Halfbright at all? I'm thinking like, if you are noticing that a lot of the candidates coming are like missing a certain area, are you able to influence that curriculum ever? You were talking about React. Like, have y'all talked about adding React to their curriculum or anything like that?
Yeah, we haven't done anything formal, so we don't have like a let's get together every periodic time and talk about it. But basically, every time that I go there for a career day or some other function, I end up finding instructors or kind of administrative staff to talk through what we're feeling, what we're seeing, and I think they're really responsive to that. And I think they've tailored what they've done over time based on, I'm sure, not just from what they hear from Eventbrite, from what they hear from everyone, but I think they're pretty open and receptive to it.
I think that's something that's so unique about boot camps that you don't really get with other like sources of talent, I guess, is that they're able to iterate on their curriculum so quickly and responsively that it's like, if you see something that's missing, they can theoretically add it into the next cohort. Whereas I don't know if you get that from a CS program or not. Maybe you do.
You're bringing Liz. It's a great point. We have this team down in Mendoza, Argentina, that I would love to be able to talk to the University of Mendoza and say, would you start teaching this instead? I've got a much more direct channel for that with Halfbright than I do with the University of Mendoza.
Totally. Okay. I love that. All right. So big question. I'm going to assume the answer is yes, because you've had a lot of great things to say, but will you hire from Halfbright in the future? Is that the plan?
Oh yeah. We hired 3 people from the last class, which is the most we've ever hired from one class. So I think we're pretty bought in on the effectiveness of the program. It's helped us quite a bit, and hopefully we're helping them as well.
Totally. Well, and then finally, I feel like you have just like such great experience as an employer, maybe for even other employers. Do you have any advice for other employers who are thinking about hiring from a boot camp or from Halfbright in particular?
I guess the only advice I would have is, I think it's an investment. I think there's the potential for you to look at a program like this and say, well, the learning curve is too steep, and I'm not sure if they've had the background that I want or whatever. I think you can depend on, if you make the investment and you choose the right people and you invest in them in the right way, it's going to pay off. It's going to be worth something to you down the road. So you have to think about your team and your company, not just what it means for the next 6 months, but what does it mean for the next 6 years. And I find that we've definitely had some great success stories from the people that we've hired. So I can't really recommend them any more than just say it's something you should make the investment.
Amazing. Well, I think that those are all of my questions. Pat, you've answered everything that I want to know. Is there anything that we totally skipped over that you want to make sure our readers know about how Eventbrite hires, or about how you've worked with Halfbright over the last couple of years?
No, I think it was a great set of questions, Liz. I think we covered pretty much everything we want to say.
Amazing. Well, Pat, thank you so much for joining us. This has been super enlightening, learning about how you see Halfbright as a channel for that tech talent. And I think that any future boot campers who are watching will get so much out of hearing what they can work on to be hired by a great company like Eventbrite. So cannot thank you enough. To everyone watching, I will post links to the video recording of this live Q&A on Course Report. I'll also include contact information and information about Halfbright. All of that will be on our blog. So visit Course Report, reach out to us on Twitter, Facebook, let us know what you want to see in our next live Q&A. Thanks, Pat.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you.
All right.